Please welcome comedians George Lopez, Aparna Nancherla, Dulcé Sloan, Sasheer Zamata, and co-creator of the Kennedy Center Mark Twain Prize for Humor, Cappy McGarr.
That's exactly right, Linda.
Women are taking over. You know, it was Latinos until they started sending us all back. So the numbers.
Good afternoon.
Listen, we need you to we need y'all to take
Welcome
the heat
to What's
off
So
us.
Funny About Race. Beats me. This is a panel discussion about the role of comedy plays in social commentary, and especially about the issues of race. And I just have to say before we begin, it's so refreshing to be on a panel where I am the diversity.
Well, I'm gonna say that you are the minority, my man.
Yeah.
Humor has long played a crucial role in American politics. Lyndon Johnson said he wasn't much for one-liners, he was more of a yarn spinner. But he did have a favorite saying anytime someone was about to engage in a battle of wits. President Johnson would reply, "How courageous of you to go in unarmed." In that sense, I find myself arrived unarmed today, but we're lucky to have several guests who offer no shortage of wit. Over the course of their respective careers, these four comedians have risen to prominence in the world of comedy while deftly managing and navigating through the controversial social and political subject matters. Oh, and I should mention they're very, very funny. He's a veteran of stand-up comedy, an actor who created and starred in his own sitcom, ABC, his own late-night talk show on TBS, and he's one of the country's most prominent Mexican Americans. And as we've recently learned from Fox News, Mexico is one of the more prominent Mexican countries.
There's four of them. There's four.
Please welcome George Lopez. She has played reoccurring roles on Comedy Central's show Corporate and HBO's Crashing, and incidentally, she was accepted to the United States Military Academy, but instead she went to Amherst. Go figure. She's also has a Netflix stand-up special streaming now. Please welcome Aparna Nancherla. She's a correspondent on The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, who's appeared on True TV's Comedy Knockout, and in Conan, she's been on Conan quite a few times. Please welcome Dulcé Sloan. And she's an alumni of Saturday Night Live whose stand-up special, Pizza Mind, is available on Amazon Prime and Stars on Demand. Please welcome Sasheer Zamata. Sasheer has a stand-up comedy routine that says white guys can't pronounce her name. I've been practicing for the last 2 weeks.
You almost got it.
And of course...
You said mine wrong too.
Did I get yours wrong?
Yes.
Hey, George, what about you?
You know, that's why I didn't make you introduce me as Jorge Lopez.
Okay, Jorge. And of course, what better to moderate this sensitive discussion about race than a guy like me? If I can make it through the next hour without anything that trends on Twitter, I'll call it a success. So let's please welcome our fantastic panelists. I'm a longtime fan of comedy, and all of you have accomplished some incredible things in your career. Some of your work has been about race, and some of it hasn't. Just to give the audience an idea of where you're coming from, how does race factor in your materials? And Sasheer, I'll get you to start first.
All right. Well, my material is very personal. I always try to start with a personal experience and get it to relate to a crowd. And I am Black. Surprise! And so sometimes my comedy is about that, but I don't think I've ever written something and thought, oh, I'm going to try to tackle this issue or tackle this problem. It really is like, here's a story, and it'll cover these issues, but I want to come at it in a very, I don't know, personal way.
Right, right. Dulcé?
I too am a black. Although 23andMe said I was 20% Caucasian, but that's not gonna get me out a ticket. Thank you so much.
Y'all are such braggarts. It's unbelievable. Y'all are braggarts.
I don't know if that's a brag.
Yeah. And if you want to know how we're both 20% white,
You can.
Slavery. So. We didn't choose it, it chose us. But no, I talk about my experience about, looking like a lady who works at the DMV. And there's only been like one time I really, because I talk about different things like, wanting to have children because I've always looked like a mother of 3 and had titties for a long time. And, sorry, breasts. And didn't want to offend. But the only time I've really, and I talk about myself, and that's, how I look, and, things that happened to me. But the only time I've really sat down and really written a joke about race was after Sandra Bland was murdered. And because the point of the joke is basically like growing up, they didn't tell us that black women got killed by the police. And I have proof of that because I've yelled at so many cops. And I'm alive. So I really had to reconcile this new information with the fact that growing up, that was always the thing where it's like, we gotta be here for our black men because, they can get killed by the police, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, shit. They've been killing us the whole time, and nobody talked about it. And so it kind of took me a year to kind of figure out how to work this bit and how to figure it out, and I kind of the way I was able to get into it was when you're dating a black man, all of the things, his struggle is literally above yours on a daily basis. Because there was always his perspective death above you. No matter what happened to you that day, the fact that he could be killed by the cops was always above you. Yep. And then when I found that out, I'm like, oh. Nah, Playboy. We can both get killed by the cops. Sit down, I'm finna tell you about my damn day. Nah.
George?
Well, I also had my DNA checked, and I'm 4% black.
I remember from the show.
So ladies, don't worry. I never really wanted to become a comedian that kind of relied on race stuff, it's because you just would like to just be happier than that. But, and I'm known, and people, I was on the elevator and this lady says, I know you. And I said, do you? And she says, yes. And she looks at her phone and she says, I don't have any bars. And I said, I put in your driveway. You know what that fucking lady said? Yes! So I'm putting in a fountain on Friday.
For memory.
You don't turn down work, they told me. But I don't think I would have it. I don't think I would have it any other way, knowing that there's a lot of people who don't have a voice. And, if I look like Mario Lopez, maybe I'd go easier.
Yeah.
But I look like, the star of Roma, so I gotta say a little bit something. So it's always been kind of, I always look for it, and it's always around. It's never too far.
Aparna?
Sure. So I am Indian American. I identify as a white man for salary reasons. But I don't talk about race as explicitly in my comedy. I am an introvert, and I think a lot of my comedy comes from the inside out, and I do talk a lot about mental health in my act and a lot of personal experience around that. So I think there is just, by being a woman of color in comedy, there is truth in just you sharing your experience and people seeing that coming from someone they might not otherwise. So I think sometimes race can not necessarily be explicitly said in your act, but it sort of influences what you're saying and how people are perceiving your experience. Because I think one thing we need more from people of color is hearing about a range of experiences, not just one example of a black man or a black woman or a Latinx person. So I think that is part of the power of just having more types of experiences represented on screen.
Yeah. Okay, a lot of great comedians have used their platforms to speak truth to power. At the same time, many people watch comedy as a way to escape the stresses of everyday life. In y'all's experience, how do you balance between the two approaches, especially when it comes to talking about race?
Well, first of all, nowhere is safe.
And no one is safe.
No one, and it's like, because people talk about safe spaces, and one of my friends, 24-year-old white dude, so he's fine. We were talking, he's like, yo, this is safe. I was like, nowhere's safe. And I think the idea of a safe space is amazing. But unless you're home or at your mama's house, nowhere's safe. So I always treat everything. I don't want to always lead with, I'm black and this is my opinion about something.
Right.
But the first thing that hits the door is me being black. Then the next thing that hits the door is me being a woman. Then the next thing that hits the door is me being plus size, and I haven't spoken yet. So it's the same for all of us.
But you use that.
But can I say that in the Latino community, you would be considered a waif?
Because I'm not.
So.
No. In the black community, I just got black people fat. For a long time, I was white people fat. And, because black people fat is, thick, big. Yeah, but once you hit a certain level, you're like, I'm auntie now. So, I'm big, I need to get back to thick. So, I think what Aparna was saying is that sometimes things become about race that you have no intention of becoming about race. Mm-hmm. Just talking about my experiences, because people have said to me, you're a political comic. No, I'm not. But me talking about my experiences as a woman who looks how I look makes me political.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I'm not doing anything, I'm not saying anything, I'm just saying something that's new to you.
Right.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's a strong political statement.
Right.
All I'm talking about is getting hit on at some dude at Kroger. That's what I'm talking about. But look at a man in my face when he says I'm pretty and I say, I know, that's because as a woman, you're supposed to go, no, dude, you work at Kroger. Thank you, I know. How are you talking to? So people put stuff on you. Stuff is made racial when it's not. Stuff is made political when it's not. So anytime we talk, it's political, it's racial, it's whatever.
Sasheer, you've got incredible comedy routine about this particular subject. So how do you differentiate between humor and the talking about politics and how it comes together in your routines?
Yeah, I feel the same as Dulcé, that I get labeled as a political comedian when I really don't talk about politics. If you think talking about being a woman and being black is political, then yes. But I'm not talking about the government. I don't really know much about it.
Me either.
I mean, honestly, I'm pretty selfish. I like talking about me a lot. And I feel very privileged that other people like that too, and like that about me, because I'll keep doing it. But I really don't try to manage other people's expectations. Hello?
The past.
What was that?
I try not to manage other people's expectations of me. You can think whatever you want. I mean, I'm putting my work out there, I'm putting my art out there for you to interpret it however you need to.
Right.
If you hear me tell a story about my mom, or me in therapy, or me and my boyfriend, or whatever, and you interpret it in some way that relates to you and your life, that's great. I think that's amazing.
Right.
I'm not gonna try to nitpick and make you think differently from that. I want you to think about your world in a way that's new and different because you heard me talk about my world.
Right.
And I think that's a beautiful thing about comedy, is that I can show up a lens or a mirror to what you have going on just by being me. And I want you to do that for yourself too, and spread that same kind of energy around, and share stories, and listen to stories. Yeah, I think just hearing another perspective is really important, because it makes you think about other perspectives.
Yeah, well, you're a great storyteller, Aparna.
Yeah, and to add to Sasheer's point, I think we're used to seeing, white men or women represented on screen and being asked to relate to that experience as the default. And I think now we're at least moving in some kind of a direction of seeing different faces and experiences reflected on screen, and being like, that could still apply to anyone. That it doesn't have to just be, like a trans person's experience. Like, they probably, had a bad morning commute, and we can all relate to them having a bad morning commute. So I think we are in a moment, I think, Dulcé, you were talking about this backstage, where it does seem like comedians are being asked to be more overtly political, because it's almost like, because there is a rise in white nationalism in our country, anyone who doesn't look like they could be, catered to in white nationalist perspective, like all of us are being asked to be like, what's your take? What are you doing to fight white nationalism? And it's like, I don't know, existing,
George, you I know you have perspectives on this.
Well, I was never a political activist per se, but, under our current administration, and especially, like I had an HBO special that I called The Wall. We did it at the Kennedy Center. And I said that because the only way I said if you were going to build that wall, that you better build it in a day, because if you leave that material out there overnight,
Ladders on trucks.
and then I said if the president had trouble with immigrants, then he should stop marrying them.
She put the work. She put in real
And there
work.
we are. I gotta say something. As a Mexican American, I can't stay silent when all this stuff is going on. So, we provide a lot to this country every day from the ground up. Do you think that, there's no respect? I mean, do you think that it's coincidence that the same week that they're throwing tear gas over into Mexico was the same week that all the lettuce went bad? No. So, and I say we don't eat lettuce. I mean, look at us.
Real tacos don't have lettuce
They don't.
on
They
them.
take it off. We treat lettuce like a relative you don't want in the house. You're like, you and that broccoli, get the fuck out of here. I don't want either of you in this house.
But cilantro, come on.
Cilantro, yeah. So clearly, And then my grandmother, my grandmother raised me, and she was my biological grandmother, and she might have been, harder on me than anyone, because as an only child, they were just worried about my grandmother and grandfather if they ate. So, I mean, I was a vegetarian until I was 13. And then I said, why? And she's like, because meat is for important people. So
Did you have a black grandma?
yeah. 4%. But, you know, she could always find something to eat. You know, your mom, all the moms would be able to find something to eat, and then she would find that one hot dog in the bag that's just like covered in its own fat, and I would be like, it's covered in fat, and you're not? And I'd be like, oh, all right.
One comedy writer I spoke to said, Twitter means you're now competing with everyone who thinks they're a comedian. And now has Twitter or social media in general changed the landscape of comedy and social commentary?
It has, because anybody with 1 million followers can get a weekend at a comedy club.
Right.
That don't mean you're good. That means you can sell tickets.
Right.
But what the problem is once they get these tickets sold, and then they find out, oh, I can't do. My 5-minute video is different than having to do an hour. You got to watch 12, 15 of my videos to get an hour worth of comedy. I got to sit here and talk to you for an hour? No.
It's true.
So they have dates at the beginning of their tour. At the end of the tour, they cancel. Because word starts getting out, because you got all of this publicity and all of this hype off of social media. And then all those people who came to see you and saw you bomb for an hour went back on your social media
True.
and said, don't buy these tickets. So I hope you pay for your car in full.
It's true.
Sasheer, you have a comment about that? Social media and Twitter and everybody wanting to be a comedian?
Yeah, I mean, that's true. Like, authenticity and talent ideally will prevail. People can tell when you're a fraud. But I also love memes. I love them. I love sharing them. I love liking them. Yeah, I think social media is a great way to spread information very quickly for people to connect in different countries or parts of the country and learn about a new thing that's trending somewhere else. I think it's good. It can be detrimental when people are saying harmful things and that's getting spread very fast, or when people are getting popular just off of tweets but they don't have the talent to back it up. Right. But I do think it's a nice way for people to connect and trend together, because I don't know, there's like a trap country song that I love right now that's out, and it's like we all get to enjoy that together, not just country people or people who like trap music. It's just like all of us are loving these memes and these jokes together, and I think that's fun.
Yeah. Okay, next question, Aparna. I'm going to direct this to you. Sometimes in comedy.
I don't get that question.
You can get that question.
Aparna's Twitter famous,
You're Twitter famous. You go ahead,
she kills
please.
Twitter. I don't know how it works, honestly.
No.
I can help you.
Please help me, dog. Damn.
Come on, Aparna.
Oh, no, I was just going to add that I mean, social media, obviously, there's good things and bad things. I have a very love-hate relationship with it myself, but I do think it has like removed some of the gatekeepers, the traditional gatekeepers,
right,
in terms of finding an audience. Like, I found a big audience on Twitter that I don't think I would have just coming up in the comedy clubs, because you have to deal with some, you know, not, I would
white
say,
men.
Yeah, some unsavory types, I'll say. So.
But you were able to get on stage and do an hour-long stand-up, or however long your stand-up is.
Sure, but to Dulcé's point, they're different mediums. Like,
yeah,
I think
exactly.
We think followers translates into a live performance, and it's a completely different beast.
Right.
So I think it's still new enough relatively that we haven't figured out exactly how to translate one thing to the other. So I think right now we're still in a ambiguous zone with it, where there's some people are getting massively famous and not able to kind of sustain it, and then other people are, I don't know, getting book deals, and it turns out they did deserve
They
it
had talent.
from the beginning. Yeah.
George, how many Twitter followers do you have?
I have, I believe, 2 million. And I don't like it because everybody has a camera, everybody has video, and you know, they might catch you leaving Dodger Stadium drunk on opening day, but you know, if it was in August, I'd be walking out drunk. But I mean, you're not used to being almost like hunted or targeted every time you leave the house. So, and it's come to like bullying with children and stuff like that. And I don't.
It's intrusive.
It's dangerous because people do it. Like athletes have done it, put their thoughts on. You know, Kevin Hart had the thing with the Oscars where they went back 10 years and saw some things that he had said. So it's a very dangerous thing. I don't think people realize that what goes on there stays on there forever.
The other problem is that it let everyone think that their opinion is valid.
Right.
Oh,
It's true. It's like that.
It's
It's
very
like that.
tense right now.
Have you talked to people?
No. That's right.
We used to be able to sift and figure out who's supposed to be giving me real information. I could tell you anything. And if 1,000 people like it, I told a room full of college-educated black women that carbs do not count on a Saturday with an even number. And they believed me because they wanted it to be true. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if I can convince black women who graduated from college during segregation that was true, I could put that on the internet and start a diet craze. I could be a millionaire. We used to be able to sift. We used to be able to go, hey. We used to be able to fact check. But once your news became entertainment, then you lost the fact check.
Right.
You got to fill up 24 hours of fucking CNN and MSNBC. Before you had your news at 11, 6 p.m., and then the weatherman acting a fool from 6 to 10, and that's all you did.
You know?
TV used to turn off.
And you know, they go to TMZ now. TMZ is like the number one source
TMZ.
of, That's
They
where
lied on
people
my
go.
uncle.
That's
Fuck
where
TMZ.
that's where people go to for the breaking news.
It's kind of like fast food. It's just
Yes.
like quickly produced, very thin, superficial information. Yeah, no fact checking, just people being like, what's gonna click? We're gonna collect the clicks quickly so we can get these advertisers happy so we can get this money. And people aren't doing their job anymore. Like journalism is very
So people in
at
Congress,
risk.
people in Congress, in the Senate and the House are talking about regulating social media, mainly
How?
Facebook and Twitter. And they'll put regulations in there. You don't think so?
Weed's illegal. You can smoke it every day. And you think you're gonna stop something that lives on electricity? Shut up. I gotta call a person and get a thing. This, all I gotta do is look at a phone. As long as it's powered up and the internet ain't turned off, I'm fine. You can't regulate this.
I don't know. They can regulate advertising. They can regulate. They can do a lot of things to regulate.
You can regulate the money,
Yeah.
and you have to.
Yeah.
Because the only way you've ever been able to stop anything is the money.
You're right.
That's how you got, that's why the Birmingham bus boycott worked. That's why that worked. Because black women didn't on the bus for 381 days. That's how they got that to work. But it wasn't 2 months. It wasn't 3 months. It was over a year.
Right.
Because you messed some white man's money up. And as much as people want to get upset, my mother told me from the very beginning, if you want to change anything in America, you got to fuck up a white man's money. So when you start having comics go, hey, when it got to the point where America went, we want to see people of color in our comedy.
Yeah.
and the money started to reflect that, then that's when you got the change. Hollywood didn't do this because they got ambivalent all of a sudden and wanted to care about people that look like us. It was because America went, we are tired of seeing that white dude in the blue fucking hoodie.
Yeah.
Give us somebody else. And that's when we showed up.
Yeah.
Because the money showed up first.
Yeah. It also happened to be that y'all were really funny.
We've always been funny. That's not the point.
They just recognized it.
Because money recognized it.
The game.
They don't care about, that's the whole thing. We have these conferences and everybody's supposed to act like this is some huggy and touchy-feely shit. It's not. There are people who wake up every morning and don't want us in this country, and we built this shit. Literally.
Like the White House.
So it's about the money going, I'm descended from people who were brought here against their will and built this shit. Yes. And the whole time we've had to beg people to not look at us like criminals and monsters and that we've contributed. We've been funny the whole time. We've been talented the whole time. All of the music in America comes from us. Weed became illegal because white people could not control Mexicans bringing it over. It had nothing to do with wanting to help any damn body. It's money. It's always been money.
Yeah.
Elvis is amazing, but he stole from us. Rock and roll, blues, jazz, everything was stolen from us. And then I got to smile in somebody's face and ask me to give it back. No. So I would love to sit up and say we've done so much and thank you so much, but we've had to fight the same people who told us we weren't talented and took from us and then had to turn around and go, hey, we're gonna let y'all have a chance now.
Right.
The fuck are you talking about?
George, when you got started many years ago, and when you got started, how difficult was it to break in because you're Mexican American?
Well, I'll say this. My show started in March of 2002, and it's still on even today. So
I watch it.
It's one of the very few shows. Thank you very much. It's one of the few shows that has done better in syndication than when it did when it was in production. And when the agency would try to match me up with writers, like I had a guy that was a writer for Cheers, and I met with him, and we got along great. And he told the people that I work with that he thinks I'm funny, but he can't write for a Mexican guy. And I was like, what? How? You just write to the guy. And I'll tell you who. Without her, I wouldn't be anywhere. I would have not had this great. Without Sandra Bullock, who lives in Austin, who discovered me, I wouldn't have had my chance. Wow. So, yeah, she found me. She said, we'll find the right people. We'll find the right writers, and we'll write this thing about your family. And that show is just about a family. Like we didn't weigh on anything. And I even said like. One of the first things that got all over the news was I had a meeting and at 2:00 this lady comes over. She's an executive with the television company, and she says, "Can I talk to you on the stage?" And I said, "Yeah." We walk over there. They were painting the stage. The kitchen was where it was, and she says, and she brought a friend that was half Mexican. So she goes, "I brought Brenda because her mom is Mexican." And we're looking at the kitchen, and there's nothing in the kitchen that would indicate that a Mexican family lives here. And I got up, and I went into the kitchen. I go, how about now?
What did she want you to do? Like put a
swear to-
comal or like
yes.
a tortilla press in there or something?
She said, where's the tortilla maker? I said, she's in the hospital. She's got dementia, man. You can't bring her here. She'll start crying. But that's real. Like you have to laugh because it's so absurd. You can't believe that somebody would have that thought. Like, we're so different. Well, stereotype is just kind of the condition, you know. It's kind of like ignorance is really the seed of all of this stuff. Is some people assuming a person is one way. You know, when I bought my house, it sounds like jokes because that's what becomes the joke. On a Saturday afternoon, I'm upstairs, this guy knocks on the door, I'm standing there, he says to me, "Is the man of the house home?" And I said, "No, no está aquí, se fue." Listen, I can't stand on my roof because people be like, "Can you come and take a look at my roof when you're done?" You're doing a fantastic job. When Hurricane Katrina, you know, there were Latinos on the roof. That was a helicopter pilot that thought they were rebuilding already. They were trying to get off the roof. They're like, "Oh, the rebuilding has started." And then
People are dedicated.
and then I said that FEMA meant find every Mexican available. So it's all there. I mean, it's all there. I mean, so I would be a fool to ignore what stares back at me every day.
Okay, this leads me to the next question. Sometimes in comedy, you get attention by making a statement. Sometimes you are the statement. In your experience, what's the difference between tokenism and representation that is genuinely meaningful?
Run it, girl.
But can I add something to what Dulcé was saying earlier, which is that there is like a hunger for other people's stories right now, and a lot of it is just following the money of what's trendy and what is marketable and monetizable right now. And I think there is sometimes with representation a surface level job where it's like, here's this show we just slapped together, you know, you guys like fresh off the boat. Here's another show about an Asian family, and then you're not actually having Asian writers in the room, or you're not having, you know, someone who actually knows that story. So it's just a very surface level job of trying to appease. So I think the difference between tokenism and actual representation is getting people in those rooms and behind the camera, and not just like some actor you throw in at the last step who didn't get to see the scripts beforehand, doesn't get to give their input. Like it starts a lot earlier. It starts in the industry room where the suits are making the decisions. Like those people need to also not be all white men making the decisions of what ends up on your screen.
I'm so glad.
You know, but also for people of color in Hollywood, writers and stuff, like you have to be prepared. Like you have to do your work, because nobody's just going to give you a chance to be a writer and you not contribute anything to the show or to the actors, you know. A lot of times comedians are great at writing jokes, but they don't know the structure of maybe writing a script. They got great ideas, you know. And when my show started, I got criticized for not having as many Latino writers. I had a woman who was a playwright, comedian, and a writer. She stayed the whole time. And we had other women that we found at workshops and showcases, and one that was a poet. And we thought, oh, you know, she might be able to, like, you know, bring some kind of like, just kind of some nice moments, you know, and God bless her. I mean, I gave her a job. 2 months, they called me into the office, and they said that at the end of the day, she was taking everybody's food home. From after lunch, you would leave food in the refrigerator, and when she left, she, you know, I guess poets don't make a lot of money. So she was taking the food home that all the other writers, like, that was kind of where she was not making a lot of money in life, and then trying to contribute. But her thing was, you know, I don't know how long I'm gonna be here, and she was taking food and stuff, and, you know, so, you know, I tried to help her, but really, she had to help herself first. I mean, you know, you can get an opportunity, but you don't get two opportunities. You really kind of just get one good one.
Right. Well, also, people need to learn to help people who are different than them. Yeah. Like a lot of, if you have a production staff, a head writing staff of all white men, they're going to relate to people who look like them and like, oh, your humor's like mine. I will put you under my wing. And you can teach somebody how to write a script. You can teach somebody how to write jokes.
Yeah.
And there's other people who are talented and funny who don't look like that or even have that same kind of sense of humor, but they don't get the same opportunities because they're like, well, you'll figure it out. Or like, you're different, hopefully someone will hire you eventually. But like, you can easily just hire that person too and teach them how to do the thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't go to college, but you don't have to go to college to like know how to write a script. You could just teach someone the structure or the basics of what's going on, but we don't get as many chances because we're not in the club. You know, we're not in that frat. We don't look like certain people or have the same type of language, but you gotta step outside that box and realize sometimes other people's languages will make your work so rich and colorful and fruitful that you're actually gonna lack a lot of stuff if you don't have it in there.
Right. Dulcé?
Going back to like what George was saying, I was working on a script about my family, and one of my friends, her boyfriend was helping us, and he'd sold some shows before, and I was talking about my mother, and my mother has a 3-story house. She drives a Jaguar. She put a chandelier in every room in her house. Every room. There's a chandelier in her bathroom. And when they were working on the scripts, and this is a white person talking to another white person, and whenever he would describe what the house looked like, he would never want to say that the house looked nice. My mother worked my entire life to get a Jaguar and get a house and put a chandelier in every room and color code every room. And so she said to him, why won't you, she said this is what it looked like. Why won't you acknowledge that? And he was like, well, I mean, it has to be realistic. And she came back to me and I said, you don't think it's fucking realistic? For Marianne Hill to have a nice home? Dude, I'm from Atlanta. I grew up seeing black money.
Yeah.
The Cosby Show wasn't a revelation to me. I had black dentists and black doctors my whole fucking life. But for a lot of people, that was their little bit of representation. Right. That was a thing that they saw.
Right.
Because this is the thing, people shit a lot on the South, but I'm telling you, white people in the South have seen more black doctors than white people up north. I promise you that. And so when it comes to tokenism and representation, tokenism has to be white people from the top down say, you black person, you Latino, you Asian person, you're the thing, get in it. So tokenism is always taken to be a derogatory term because you have had to represent everyone who looks like you.
Right.
Now I am every black person, now I'm every Mexican. How is that not also representation? But because you've made me into the monolith, now I'm a token.
Right.
When I'm actually representing.
Right.
But if you put one more person of color in this, if you put one more black person in this, now I'm not a token. Now I'm just representing. So it has to be, you get tokenism when everyone above you is not what you are. But tokenism has never not been representation. It's also how it's just how it's filtered. But if you can get people that look like you, or I as a woman of color can understand the issues of other women of color. I know that because I grew up with Mexicans. So what my homegirls go through, no one in my family is going to get deported. But her brother did. I've had homeboys stop coming back. One of my friends got deported back to Guatemala. So most of my friends, most people who are black don't deal with that. But you always have to go, I can look at you and understand a struggle. I can look at you and understand a struggle. But there's people who don't look like us who can go, I don't see what you're doing. And if you can look at someone else and go, I don't get that, then you can make me a token, and you can make me a representation, and you can make me a pawn, but say, look, we have diversity. We have 7 TV shows and one of them has a black person in it. Give us money. So I think we can decide whether or not a token is a representative or not.
Right.
But it's not something that's determined by us. I think it's determined by the industry.
Right. Thank you. So I want to go around and I did give our very final panelist a heads up on this, but I'd like for each of you to tell your funniest race joke, or the funniest joke you've heard about race. So, George, you want to start?
Oh. The funniest, or there's some, you know, the unfortunate thing about being a comedian is that everybody else thinks they're comedians too. So when you're someplace and somebody starts to begin to tell you a joke, you cringe. So I golf. I've been golfing since 1981. And a joke that got me in trouble was they said, well, why do you like golf? And I said, are you kidding me? You get to hit something white with a stick? But you know, I was playing golf and this guy says, you know, did you hear the one about the two wetbacks? And I'm like, hey. And he stops and he goes, you heard it? I mean, shit, it's like, I can't go nowhere.
Yeah.
But one that somebody told me a long time ago that they said, what do you get when you cross a Mexican and an octopus? And I'm literally like, and I said, I don't know. He goes, I don't know either, but you should see him pick lettuce.
Terrible.
Hey, he asked.
Terrible.
He asked me. I didn't just solicit it undetermined. You asked me.
Don't say.
How did you think a joke that started with a Mexican with 8 arms wasn't going to be about work?
Come on. Right?
That's your fault for thinking better of the person who wrote that joke.
Yes.
Thought he was going to be a fucking painter? What are you talking about?
It doesn't work as a painter either.
I meant artistic.
No, I know. Okay.
Not like stucco.
Okay. Venetian plaster.
Don't do that. I used to
Venetian
sell
plaster.
stucco in 2 languages. Is how I got here. Calm down. I can think. It's real stupid. I used to date a mechanic because I had a 92 Pontiac with 283,000 miles on it. That was leaking oil and transmission fluid. It got to 306 because, you know, I'm good at what I do. And, praise God. I might have loved him, but that's neither here nor there. Not a bad person, I just knew what I could offer. And he used to work with this redneck dude who was such a redneck that he had to use a white voice on the phone.
Oh.
That's funny.
Which, because I did customer service for a long time, so my white voice, impeccable, right? I used to call my friends when I was at work and they didn't know it was me.
Let's hear it.
So, oh my God, it's been so many years. Thank you so much for calling. This is Dulcé. How may I help you? And then I stole your credit card information. It used to be much better, but then I got to the point, I was like, fuck it. And then I was like, I don't know, this is what a black lady sounds like in my head. So, but the redneck coworker used to have to do his white voice because he said white people didn't trust him. When he used his regular redneck voice, and he said to me, he's like, listen, I got one of them race jokes I want to tell you. And I'm like, please tell me. Because if there's anything I love, is a redneck. Because they're white people who don't give a fuck, but in a good way. You'll never catch them with avocado toast. They live on Mountain Dew. They're great. And really true to themselves. And he was like, listen. He's like, you know, I had one of my buddies come over to my house and tell me that I'm a racist. And I was like, Bobby, how could that be true? I got 5 TVs in my house and all of them is colored. second. Because no one ever talks about purchasing a color TV. Because that's the only option you have now. But he's a fucking genius. So. Stupid, but I love it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with a friend of mine's. One of my favorite comedians is Dwayne Kennedy. He's a Chicago comedian. He's brilliant. I highly encourage you to look up all of his work. But one of my favorite jokes of his about race is he just goes, to solve racism in this country, we need to start a dialogue. We need to start talking to each other. For example, hey, Mr. White Man, why are you so tense and afraid? And then he just goes, hey, Mr. Black Man, how'd you get in my house?
Please tell him they killed at a race summit.
I will. I'm gonna tell him.
You made it.
I'm gonna tell him it worked.
Well, I had a very charming Iranian Lyft driver one day, and he got very comfortable, and he's like, I have a lot of black friends. He's very proud of that fact. And he's like, I have a joke that really kills with this crowd. Do you want to hear it? And I was like, yeah, obviously. And he goes, do you know how to save a white man from drowning?
No.
Good.
Get Netflix deal! Call Netflix right now. What's his name?
I wish I remembered.
Go back to your history.
Yeah, I should.
Oh, I want to close with one thought from a noted diverse comedian, Abraham Lincoln. At the height of the Civil War, Lincoln asked his cabinet, quote, "Gentlemen, why don't you laugh? With the fearful strain that is on me night and day, if I did not laugh, I should die. And you need this medicine as much as I do." Let's all thank our panelists for their insight on the medicine of laughter.